All right, everyone, welcome. I have the lighting a little off, but we'll go with it. Appreciate you being here. I want to start off with a story that has a lot of irony in it because I love irony. But before I do that, let me tell you a little story and how we are here. Once upon a time, there was a YouTuber by the name of James, and he approximated just about 1 million subscribers on this platform. But, he just said some things and that were very close to his heart, things that were constitutionally based, that were based on liberty and freedom, limited government, anti-corruption, and what have you. He started another program, which is still in existence today. You can find it on Patreon. You can find it on locals.com. You can find it on several of the episodes on Rumble. You can find it all on Spotify, Apple. And if you know who James is, it's the same channel name he used to have when he was on YouTube. A year ago, they decided they didn't really want him around anymore. Well, James was spending a lot of time working on his YouTube business and other businesses. Didn't take care of his body as well as he should. So he got into some discipline, lost tons of weight, goes to the gym 3-4 times a week, intermittent fasts. Then he decided to clone himself and make a great return. I am that clone. Appreciate you being here. Okay, welcome to everyone that is here. The only thing is the other James had great eyesight, but myself as his clone, my eyesight is not as good as the original. You know what happens sometimes you make a copy and then sometimes make a copy of a copy? Well, that's me. Reminds me of a movie. Can't remember the name of it. Anybody remember the name of the movie? It was with Michael Keaton. It was like duplicity or multiplicity or something like that. It's when he clones himself, then he clones his clone, and then it's a comedy. I remember liking it. I think it came out in the 80s, maybe the 90s. Want to thank Eric, Obama's husband, Mr. Chef, Chameleon Harris, and Don Mabe, and One Crazy Redhead for being the first ones here. Also, Maureen Blut Kraus and Jeremy Brummer with Mr. Ben Brown 2008 were the first to jump on the chat. Have fun in the chat. Please don't forget to press the like button. And if you are watching the replay or coming late, please leave your comments in the comment section. Okay, I've got a couple props I put up here. They're not actual props. They're actually things I own. They're props as far as there are property. One you can see right here. And one you can see right here. And I decided to wear my Ruger t-shirt so I can share this first story. Now, let me tell you, I'm going to go in depth on a few things here. I'm going to go with you through a smoking gun document that was found, what the Congress did today as far as Alvin Bragg. This first story, it's great irony. So I got about 4 or 5 stories we're going to go through. So let's get locked and loaded. We have this story here. A knucklehead criminal teenager, 18 years old, his name is Kentrell Flowers, attempted to carjack someone at 1:15 in the morning. The young man, because at 18, you are legally a man. 18 makes you young. I am the clone of a now 50-year-old, so 18 is young. And he had the very bad luck or misfortune to attempt to steal a car from a deputy U.S. Marshal. a U.S. A deputy U.S. Marshal who is assigned to Sotomayor as a federal bodyguard. Can't make this up. A teenage suspecting, a teenage suspect attempting to steal a car from Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor's U.S. Marshal bodyguard was shot by the federal bodyguard outside her home the day after 4th of July. And not only did the deputy U.S. Marshal he was trying to carjack shoot him, so did someone else. So did one of the other U.S. Marshals that was there. Of all the people, the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department had reported a deputy U.S. Marshal shooting, but in a press release we just got today, we got the details. The suspect exited a vehicle, approached one of the marshals, and pointed a handgun at him in an apparent attempt to carjack him. The marshal withdrew his service weapon and fired several shots at the suspect. A second marshal from another vehicle also responded and fired his service weapon, added the Metropolitan Police. The suspect of the carjacking was transported to a nearby hospital. He has non-life-threatening injuries. He has since been arrested and charged with armed carjacking, carrying a pistol without a license, and possession of a large capacity ammunition feeding device. Okay, this story is just too rich. First of all, doesn't DC have a whole bunch of gun control laws? How is it that this 18-year-old was able to attempt to carjack a person in a city with all of these gun control laws? Let's go through it. First of all, he was only 18, but he had a gun. Second, he was trying to commit a crime, carjacking someone, which means he's a criminal and doesn't obey the law to begin with. And adding, as my Mexican wife would say, or the Mexican wife of the person that I'm cloned after would say, hay más crema en esos tacos. There's more sour cream on those tacos. He was in possession of a large capacity ammunition feeding device. In other words, it exceeded whatever the magazine capacity was of the firearm. But wait a minute. I thought that's why we had all of these gun control laws, so that we can protect people from large capacity magazines and from being victims of gun crimes. Oh, but it gets richer still. The irony doesn't end there, folks. Who did I say that this happened to? Mr. Chef, laugh my arse off. Yeah, this is funny stuff. Harley Davidson Mobile. It's the gun's fault, or Trump's, or both. Yeah, it's this happened in DC, but this is the NRA's fault. This is the Republicans' fault. You are totally right there, Harley Davidson Mobile. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay, it happened in front of the condominium of Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Why is that rich? Check this out. According to the New York Post, the incident occurred shortly after 1 a.m. on July 5th. And it happened to Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who joined a dissent in McDonald versus Chicago back in 2010, rejecting a private right of armed self-defense. In a 5-4 McDonald decision, the Supreme Court of the United States of America found that the Second Amendment rights are incorporated via the 14th Amendment. A reminder, the 14th Amendment is, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, or shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. one of the equal protections we have under the law is our Second Amendment right. And let's just go along with the idea that our gun rights are for hunting or for home defense. And let's pretend that our Second Amendment rights aren't about protecting ourselves from tyranny. Tyranny. Let's just pretend that it's about self-defense only. And Sotomayor was against it. And someone with a large capacity magazine was in front of Sotomayor's home, her condo, and were stopped by U.S. deputy marshals. But of course, the left thinks that only police should have guns. At the same time, they don't back the blue, and they say that because of Black Lives Matter and everything else that we can't trust the police. Talk about cognitive dissonance does not exist among the left because you have to have some sort of cognition. You have to have some sort of brain. You have to have some sort of thinking capabilities to have cognitive dissonance. If you're wondering why the left is able to hold two opposing views at the same time, it's because they lack critical thinking skills. Everything's about emotion and how I feel, and I'm a little snowflake, and guns are bad and scary, so they should be outlawed. Can't make this up. Can't make this up. If you're joining us right now, big hug to all of y'all, those who just joining us and those who were here before. Yeah, we're talking about a would-be carjacker stopped by a big old bad gun because he had a gun in an attempt to carjack in highly gun-controlled DC with a large capacity magazine. This happened in front of Sotomayor's condominium where the deputy marshals were doing their bodyguard duty to one of the justices that dissented in the McDonald versus Chicago case. Okay, so that is that story. Let me continue with some good news coming out of Idaho, the neighboring state of Utah, of where one clone of one previous YouTuber, where we are, that's our residence. Governor Little makes Idaho the first state to take executive action for only citizens will vote. In a landmark move, Governor Brad Little, who has done a lot of rhino stuff, he's done a lot of rhino stuff. I had texted a friend of mine from, as a clone, I have false memories of the person that I'm a clone of, and that previous person worked for a bank, was a principal manager for a bank in San Diego, California, and one of the great people in that bank joined him at another bank where he was VP, and that person moved them and their family to Idaho. So I sent this text to my friend. I said, your governor and Secretary of State just became the envy and heroes of every conservative and constitutionalist in the nation. The reply that I received is, I'm so behind, I'm at work, and then gave me a lot of details and what have you, and said that some of us call him Governor Doolittle because of some rhino decisions, but he has made some really good ones. What did he just do? Did it have to do with stopping illegal immigration or abortion, I hope? And then they said they were a little embarrassed that they were working and wasn't aware of what happened. So I shared this article with them. So great news coming out of Idaho. This only pertains to Idaho, but this is a blueprint for what can be done. So I will spend about 90 seconds giving you the details. Dubbed the Only Citizens Will Vote Act, this initiative is part of a broader effort to uphold election integrity and boost voter confidence amid growing concerns about security. Governor Little, signing Executive Order 2024-07, said Idaho already has the most secure in the nation, and we're going to keep it that way. My executive order, the Only Citizens Will Vote Act, directs Secretary of State Phil McGrain to work with local county clerks to scrub our voter rolls and make sure Idaho's elections do not fall prey to the consequences of Biden's lawless open border. This, of course, happens with the backdrop of Biden saying that he is going to absolutely veto the bill that is in the House that would make it mandatory for citizens only to vote through voter ID. In addition to that, there's also a provision in that same bill coming out of the House that actually has punishment, the deportation of those who have voted illegally or registered to vote illegally who are not citizens of the country, and also there is jail time and punishment for Americans who assist in any sort of fraud. But of course, the Democrats are against it, and Biden said he'll veto it, and it probably won't even make it through the Senate anyway. This it's time for me to hydrate a moment here. I have new lighting, and the lighting is really, really warm. And I have a nice, I have two AC units here in this studio, but I think they're a little noisy. So I'm going to grin and bear it. Big hug to all of y'all. Appreciate you being here. I'm enjoying seeing you guys with some laughing faces. I don't know if you're laughing at me, with me, or if we're all just laughing at the lunacy and the irony of what's going on here. So bravo to Brad Little, the governor of Idaho. Okay, so now let's get into let's go back to Washington. I guess our first story with Sotomayor was in Washington. Now let's go up on Capitol Hill. In a bombshell release, the House Judiciary Committee, led by Chairman Jim Jordan, has unveiled a comprehensive report titled Lawfare: How the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and a New York State judge violated the constitutional and legal rights of President Donald J. Trump. Okay, before I go any further, I would like your feedback on here. Put it in the chat, but also put it in the comment section so that I can easily find it later. Do you prefer pre-recorded, uploaded episodes, or do you prefer the live streams, the interaction? And, you know, I usually don't give any kind of, I think this one had a 12 or 13 minute heads up, and we've got over 300 people on here. Last one, I think we had over 500 concurrent at its peak. Tell me which one you prefer. It seems that more people are viewing the live ones, and it has more interaction, which I find interesting. Just I want to know if this is an algorithmic thing where this platform is preferring to notify people of my live show and not so much my uploaded and pre-recorded things. Now, it could be the time, but I don't think that really plays, because I've done lives as early as like 4:35, I believe was one of them I did. And I've done them later, like 2 hours later than now, which would be close to midnight, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. That's midnight East Coast time, but it still seems to have more people. And look, a dozen people, I blinked and a dozen more people jumped on. So it seems like a lot of you guys enjoy the live stream. Okay, so I'm just reporting this news about what Jim Jordan did because he just issued a report. There's no bite behind this bark, but he outlines very succinctly what happened here. So here's the press release. This interim staff report, a result of extensive investigations by the committee and the select subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government, exposes the egregious violations of President Trump's rights by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Judge Juan Merchan. The report scrutinizes Bragg's 34-count criminal indictment against Trump, which was announced back in April. The charges involve allegations of falsifying New York business records to conceal federal crimes related to payments made by former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen to former porn star Stephanie Clifford, also known as Stormy Daniels. In 2017, the Judiciary Committee's investigation, initiated in 2023, found the prosecution to be politically motivated and legally deficient. So here are the bullet points. The report explains the several ways in which New York County District Attorney Alvin Bragg's prosecution suffers from severe legal and procedural defects, including, and we saw all this, but these are nice 6 bullet points. Bragg's unconstitutional and unprecedented Russian nesting doll theory of criminal liability, in which the jury never had to reach unanimity, just like the original guy. I have a hard time saying unanimity as to each element of the criminal offenses. And bullet point 2, Bragg's usurped the federal government's exclusive authority to prosecute alleged violations of federal campaign finance laws and the Biden-Harris administration's refusal to intercede to protect federal interests. Now, those are all 2 bullet points, but there's a lot in there. So let's break this down quickly. Okay, the Russian nesting doll theory of criminal liability. Remember, Judge Juan Merchan told the jury, hey, look, just, we have this, there's this untested theory by Alvin Bragg where he took a misdemeanor and he took a whole bunch of misdemeanors and elevated it to a felony because it's part of an underlying cover-up of another crime, which we never told you. And there's 3 different things that he could be guilty of. As long as you find him guilty of one of those, then if we have, all you jurors find him guilty of something, then we can charge him on this 34 count sham indictment. Okay, so that's the first part of that. The second part is that the federal government has jurisdiction over FEC violations, federal election violations, and they never brought any sort of charges against Trump for this because it wasn't a federal election violation. So that's one of the things that Jim Jordan's report talks about. And a second part of that second bullet point was the Biden-Harris administration refusal to intercede to protect federal interests. So Alvin Bragg usurped federal power, and then the Biden-Harris Justice Department didn't fight Alvin Bragg in his usurpation of their federal authority, which, of course, we'll get into a little bit into. I'll be ending with an update on Merrick Garland here. Obviously, they're all comrades. I mean, these are absolute treasonous, traitorous rat bastards. These are commie bastards that don't care about the Constitution, and they love doing what they do. Okay. Now, here is the second part of that. The report also detailed Judge Merchan's egregious legal rulings before and during the trial that all cut against President Trump's rights, including Juan Merchan's failure to recuse himself for manifest political bias against President Trump. Okay, he was all in. He gave money to the Democrats, was a Biden supporter, and his daughter worked for the Democrats, including Harris and other high-ranking people and the Biden administration, within the Biden administration. Totally should have recused himself. He did not. 2, the unconstitutional gag order he imposed on President Trump during the trial. That's self-explanatory. 3, Judge Merchan's admission of plainly inadmissible, irrelevant, and unfairly prejudicial testimony against President Trump. So he allowed and admitted what was legally inadmissible and irrelevant and prejudicial testimony. At the same time, point 4 of this second section is Judge Merchan's refusal to permit former Federal Election Commission Chairman Bradley Smith to testify as to the meaning and complexity of the Federal Election Campaign Act. So Judge Merchan, of course, did not let a federal election expert come in and testify on the complexities of the crime that they were trying to have a jury be convinced that he was guilty of. It's like you have a whole bunch of jurors and you say President Trump is guilty of U.S. Code 1832-4C, but you don't get to tell the juror what the hell U.S. Code 18-34C is. I would say, I'm hyperbolic. I like hyperbole. I like exaggeration. But I think the exact opposite is happening here with the use of the word egregious. No, this is traitorous, unconstitutional, Marxists. And Ann Shaw just put it in our chat box with the proper emoji. It was a boing, boing, boing kangaroo court. An absolute kangaroo court. Outside Echo Chamber says no leave Utah. I'm only leaving Utah for Texas, Wyoming, Florida, or Tennessee. I will be in Tennessee in a couple weeks. I will be in Texas, I think maybe October, and in Florida in December. Next year, I will know if I will be leaving permanently Utah or not. And because my parents and in-laws are in California, I'm still spending a lot of time in California as well. Kay Hartman says, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. I will be in Gatlinburg. I think it's an hour outside of Knoxville. I'll be flying into Knoxville. So big hug to you, Kay Hartman. Okay, so let's talk about this smoking gun. It's related to what I just reported to you. Newly unearthed email shows Leticia James's office corresponding with Biden DOJ hatchet man Matthew Colangelo about plan to get Trump. The House Judiciary Committee, led by Chairman Jim Jordan, unveiled the report titled Lawfare. That's what I just went through with you. The House Judiciary Committee also obtained a December 2022 email conversation between Biden's DOJ hatchet man Matthew Colangelo and New York AG Leticia James's office. Here is what the email said, and this was tweeted out by Jim Jordan today, Tuesday, July 9th. New document obtained by Judiciary GOP. Leticia James' office was thrilled when Matthew Colangelo was hired by Alvin Bragg. And here's what the smoking gun said. Okay, maybe I'm maybe it's hyperbole. I'm not really good at this live stuff. I'm getting Biden. I'm getting Bidenese right here. My dad or my uncle eaten by someone who eats people. Realize that Joe Biden has forgotten the name of his vice president and has forgotten the name of his of Alejandro Mayorkas. I'm surprised he remembered the word cannibal. Okay, are we having fun? Just let me know if we're having fun. We're doing this because I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy you being here. This show is not sponsored. In total transparency, let me tell you, the last thing I did here on this channel made me, just so you guys know, that we'd like to build this community, but this is definitely a labor of love. Let me look at here. The last thing we did here, YouTube paid us because I have no, the live streams just work differently. They just control the ads. I don't even know. Like I don't do ad breaks. I need to $6.43. $6.43. So I enjoy, obviously, I enjoy the camaraderie, enjoy the energy. Just let me know if you're having fun. By the way, if you do want to support what I do, remember the name of the channel that my clone. I'm either the clone of that person's the clone of me. As a clone, I don't know, right? Because you think you're the original. Remember the name, the channel name on this platform that my clone had? If you go to Rumble, Patreon, locals.com, or any of the major podcasting platforms, we're talking Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio. Just search that name. It'll be the same name and thumbnail that you used to see, and that's how you can support us. Just go ahead and consume the programming on those platforms. So, yes, Shelly Green. If you guys look at the what Shelly Green just put in the chat box, that's the name you want to search, and you will find it over there. And that guy shows pretty good. That guy shows pretty good. Okay, so Matthew, glad to see you are back in New York City. Sounds like you and Mr. Trump's paths will continue to intersect. I mean, it's a smoking gun in that they are acknowledging that Matthew Colangelo is an anti-Trump hitman. And the whole reason he was with Alvin Bragg's team was to continue to intersect paths with Mr. Trump. Not President Trump, not former President Trump. They hate President Trump, so they just call him Mr. Trump. And you have to forgive me. I either call President Trump, or I just call him Trump. And I think if you just call him Trump and not Mr. Trump, I think that still works, because President Trump was a brand. That brand was Trump. I mean, like Madonna. They just had that one, like Sting. Just had that one name moniker, and he became president. So I think it's okay. What do you guys think? Do you think it's okay to call President Trump Trump? I mean, that's how we've known him for decades. But do not call him Mr. Trump, because if you're going to put a title before it or a salutation, it should be President Trump, or at the very least, former President Trump. Banked one, Bansed one, Bainst one is correct. He says they wrote, even his son calls him Trump. So that's it. That's all there is. Bragg's top prosecutor, Matthew Colangelo, previously worked in the Justice Department and is a lifelong left-wing activist. Biden sent Matthew Colangelo to New York to convict his main political opponent on non-crimes. Why would Matthew Colangelo go from a senior position at the Justice Department to working for the DA's office? It was obviously a political move to take out Biden's main political rival, President Trump. Okay, and I want to end with this. This is bad news, or just not even bad news. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what we kind of expected. Remember when Anna Paulina Luna, great congresswoman out of Florida, was pushing for inherent contempt against Merrick Garland for him to, so that would give the sergeant at arms or congressional sergeant at arms authority to arrest, detain, and there are jail cells below the Capitol to grab Merrick Garland for not producing, for ignoring a subpoena. And remember, he has been held in contempt of Congress. Of course, the DOJ said we're not going to bring our own guy on charges against that. Meanwhile, both Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro are in federal custody, jail/prison, over the same crime. Rules for thee and not for me. If that's like, and that's a perfect example of the two-tier tyranny justice system that we are suffering under this current regime. So we're not getting that right now. We're not getting that inherent contempt charge. It was reported that there was enough votes to get it, that Speaker Mike Johnson was going to push for it, but Speaker Mike Johnson can kiss where the moon don't shine, my derriere, because he's all talk, little action. But this is not about Mike Johnson. This is about the House Appropriations Committee. Today, they adopted an amendment to reduce U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland's salary to $1 until he releases the Biden-Hur tapes. So last month, the House of Representatives held Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusing to hand over audio of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. Merrick Garland has reportedly classified at the highest level the audio tapes of Joe Biden's embarrassing interview with special counsel Hur, which, by the way, special counsel Hur said that, Joe Biden is guilty of all these things, but he's an elderly old, a well-meaning elderly old man, and no one is going to go, no jury is going to convict him. As if half the country didn't freaking hate this man. No one's going, so we're not going to do it. Meanwhile, they're trying to throw Trump's ass in jail when Trump had a skiff, was a president, and had rights to those documents. Plus, as the top executive of the executive branch, he had ultimate authority to classify and declassify. Yet they're trying to throw Trump in jail, but they wouldn't go after well-meaning Joe Biden. And now they've classified the highest level of those audio tapes. So the big old bad Congress is, through the Appropriations Committee, adopting an amendment to reduce A.G. Garland's salary to $1. Oh, with all that Joe Biden and kickback money, he was probably using his salary as the Attorney General for weekend nights out with the boys or the girls. Well, he's a biological male, and he's in D.C., so he probably has a fun time with the boys. Interpret that as you will. Big hug to all of y'all. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you hit the thumbs up before you exit and leave comments in the comment section. Big hug. Hope he says, I just found this channel. I lost him when he was a bright capitalist padre. Yes. That's not me. That's another guy. And I am just his clone.